happening as he's explaining it. So they're going to pretend like they've captured him. They're taking him prisoner. They're going to take him in and be like, hey, we found this guy that was causing trouble. He's a Romulan. Let's get rid of him. And then they would take one of these bombs and they'd have to hide it in something. And so they hid it in a soccer ball. And it was great because one of the senses like going through their bags and sees that Rios has got it in his other hand. And he's like, oh, do you play? And Rios is like, yeah. And he kind of like dribbles it.
He bounces it off his knee.
Yeah. And you see Rafi's face because she's thinking, oh, yeah. So that was pretty great. Yeah, so, we get a lot happening in this amount of time. And I know it's sort of a tropey thing to do nowadays because a lot of things have done it like that, but it shares, it is like economizes the story, like you can see what's happening and you can hear what's happening. You don't have to necessarily have a whole bunch of conversations while it's happening when you can have the voiceover. So I think it helps with that. So
I love the way that they intercut that. They show the attack, or they show them planning it and carrying it out all at the same time, all intercut together. It works really, really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's like, even though I feel like it gets used a lot, it's usually seems to work pretty well, and I liked it in this the couple times they've used it. So,
I loved Rios in this. He was really awesome. His attitude was totally cigar time is go, sleeves are a no.
Yeah. Cigar time is go, sleeves are a no. No, it's definitely very true. I feel like in this show, as soon as Rios gets that cigar in his mouth, he becomes this other person. He's on another level now.
He's so
he's
cocky.
Isn't he? He's great.
Very
oh my
great.
Gosh, he's so great. Yeah.
It's like his security blanket. That's what has him, amp up the machismo or something, is having the cigar in his mouth. So it's like, they won't know that I'm actually sensitive and I can trick people into thinking I'm hard, and then I'll come back and be sensitive and kiss them. Oh, wait, what? Anyway, there's another spoiler at the end. Anyway, yeah, no, since you said you've listened to us, Joe, I'm sure you've heard how much personally I fangirl about Rios in general.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
So, I love how much it seems like all of our guests are just as in love with him as we are, Rebecca.
I
He's
know.
a fantastic character.
He is, and I still think about that episode where the holograms all had a meeting with Rafi, and I just thought, what a great way for the actor to shine, and really just show off what he can do with these different versions of himself. And Rios is great in this episode. And I think that little touch of bouncing the soccer ball on his knee, of if it blows up, it blows up. Who knows what's gonna happen next? It's just hilarious. He's like, I don't even care right now.
He's like, let's see if this was made out of the right material to not blow up.
It's like watching a suave, charming version of Tommy Wiseau. You don't know what Tommy's gonna do or say next.
Get out of here, baby girl. I just like this ball.
Oh, hi, Mark. How's your sex life? You just don't know what's going to happen next. And if anyone's listening to this,
Tommy isn't tiny. This is exactly the person he thinks he is.
It's true, though. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So great. So while they're doing that, Girardi is breaking into Picard's room, and she uses Saga's eye. She's like, oh, I'm a secret agent, a better secret agent than I thought I'd be. All right, double agent or whatever she says. And she's like, I'm really good at this. which is really hilarious. That's our cue to know that this whole time she was pretending to go along with things, not just to keep from getting arrested or whatever, but she didn't help Picard when she could have because she was going to break him out or whatever. And how could she do that if something happened to her whenever she tried to do it then, kind of thing, So she's like, we're going to the La Serena. God, I can't even say words. So her and Picard, they're going to break out, go to the La Serena. Then we see Soong in his lab, and he, is researching, doing something, and then you hear like beep beep because Saga's memories are done. And he watches the very end before she dies and sees that it was Sutra that stabbed her in the eye and not Narek. Like, it basically looks, you can't tell if it's like he turns her around or if she turns her around from behind, like she grabs her from behind and turns her around or whatever. But you see him and then she turns around and then she gets stabbed. So, so he's like, I got to do something about this. But he doesn't say that, but you see it on his face.
I like at the beginning of that scene we had the foreshadowing as well.
Yeah. Right. And then when we see him again, he's outside, I guess, on his way to go confront Sutra, and he comes upon the Scooby Gang trying to figure out how they're going to deploy this bomb. And, yeah, right? That's what it seems like at first. And, they're like, well, how are we going to do this? And then he lets them know he's there and he's heard what they're talking about. And he's just, like, well, we're going to figure this out, or I'll show you, or whatever he says. So then it's like, okay, good. He's going to help them. So we go back, and Picard and Jurati are at the La Serena now, and they're starting to argue about saving the synths because, even though Jurati was like, oh, no, Soji, you're beautiful and wonderful. I don't want to kill you. Now she's like, they must all die. Like, she's like having all of these mood swings. Like, she wants to kill them, then she doesn't, and then she does. And here we have Picard going on with another speech that is timely, I'd say, talking about how the synths weren't raised correctly and that part of it was just fear of something happening to them, of their own extinction. And for me, that seems very true for, unfortunately, a lot of humans are that way, and it makes them fear everyone else. And we're not going to get too into it because people will say it's political, even though human lives shouldn't be political.
Yeah, I love it. Picard says fear is an incompetent teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What a great line.
Very
what a
cool.
great line. Fear is an incompetent teacher. And you can see that both sides of this conflict, both the organic side and the synthetic side, are both acting out of fear, right? And that's really what was the message in the admonition to the synths, was that out of fear, out of fear, organics will ultimately destroy their creation. They will ultimately destroy you. So when that time happens, we're going to be here as like your backup. And so the synths are afraid of the organics. Organics are afraid of synths because, as has been shown, you can hack in and you can have them do things that they weren't programmed to do originally. And so, but because of that fear, it's led them to this point 14 years later. And so it's at this moment that both sides have to put their fear aside. But how do they do that? It's such a great lesson because Picard says here that he's going to teach them by example. And he's got some big grand gesture planned because it's Picard. But man, what a great moment between him and Jurati here on the ship, just talking about being alive is not just a right, it's a responsibility. Now you have to do something with that life.
I totally agree that the stuff between him and Agnes was fantastic here. And this was the episode to where I finally started liking her character in this episode. I really didn't care for her through much of the season. but she really shined in this episode, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that so many of Picard's moments where he's giving these really great speeches in this episode, she's right there with him.
Well, you think about it too, like the synths were her and Bruce's vision for what could be done, and I know that, Dr. Sung says that she's like their mother, and then then she's like, I'm not their mother. Well, she is, but she isn't, because she didn't have a hand in raising them or guiding them in any way. So these synths have developed without the two parents who
she's
really
their stepmother.
She is. I mean, I guess she's kind of like their
it's like their dad, like it's like your parents get divorced and then one of them gets remarried when you're an adult, like that kind of step parent. That was not around during your formative years.
Yeah.
But still thinks they can tell you what to do with your life. She doesn't want to be that. She wants to be the cool aunt if she wasn't wanting to kill them all.
Well, I think she feels like her vision, or the vision that she had with Bruce for like this synthetic society, it's been perverted. It's been twisted and turned into something that she did not sign up for. And I think that's where her anger comes from here, of like, these are not my children. These are not the synthetics that Bruce and I designed and dreamed up and thought of and wanted to create. It's been perverted. It's been twisted into this other thing. And I think that that's where her anger and desire to like, kill them all comes from, is because it's just not what they intended. And I think she would feel differently if she had left with Bruce and had gone with him to this place and had been there from the beginning, and we meet her at the end of the season. I think she would feel differently. But because she didn't do that, she feels cut off from these people. Like she's like, these are not the people I envisioned.
She could also still be shaking off the effects of the admonition.
There's that. And that whole mind meld with Commodore O that forced her to kill Bruce, or compelled her to kill Bruce.
Right, because the more evidence she got that would happen is what really helped her do the things that she did. But, she got evidence that Soji was a nice person and, all this kind of thing, and that she seemed like she wouldn't do something like that. So, of course, she changed her mind then. I mean, the poor thing has a hard time making up her mind about stuff. But also, this is pretty, it's pretty rough. I personally don't know that I would be like, we got to kill them all at all, because I'm not that kind of person. But Alice doesn't seem like that kind of person either. But, she does still have a bit of that in her mind, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on. So, like we said, Rebecca said that they're going to learn from example. Picard's going to have them learn from example, because they only have 6 minutes and 11 seconds until the Romulans show up. And Picard fires up the ship, and Alice is the one that says, make it so this time, and they fly off. They're going to try to hold off all 218 ships by themselves. So what a plan this is going to be.
I love seeing Picard.
Yeah. Because it's definitely not any way that the ships would have been when he was, still in that sort of thing. Because it's not even like whenever he was captain, it didn't actually have to pilot the ship. So
yeah, he and certainly in Next Generation, there have been scenes where Picard takes the con, like he sits at the helm and he'll. There have been a couple of scenes where he'll sit there, but that was a touchpad, and
it was like a physical.
He pressed buttons on a touch screen, basically. And now he's like, not only has it been a very long time since he's even been on a starship, but the technology has moved forward so much. Picard's like a boomer here. Like he just has no, like